Hey guys, welcome to the video CRUD AJAX REST API Call examples with Spring Boot, jQuery and Bootstrap. I am Nam Haming from CodeJava.net. Through this video, you will learn how to code a CRUD module for a Spring Boot project with Spring Data JPA for the data access layer, Thymeleaf for the template engine, Spring RESTful Webservices for the REST API, and jQuery for AJAX Calls to the REST API, and Bootstrap for responsive web user interface, and MySQL for the database. To follow this tutorial, make sure that you have the following software programs installed on the computer: Java Development Kit JDK, Spring 2.3 IDE SDS, MySQL Server, and MySQL Workbench. You will learn how to code a module in a Spring Boot project that allows the user to manage a list of countries in the database with the user interface that looks like this. You see, we will use Bootstrap to make this responsive web user interface, and the user can perform CRUD operation, create, retrieve, update, and delete countries in the database. We will use jQuery to perform the CRUD operations via AJAX Calls to the REST API on the server, which is implemented by Spring Boot Web Services. Similarly, you will also learn to code another module that allows the user to manage states or provinces in a specific country with a user interface that looks like this. As you can see, we will use Bootstrap to make the responsive web user interface like this, and all the CRUD operations, create, retrieve, and update, are performed using AJAX calls to the REST API on the server, which is implemented by using Spring Boot RESTful Webservices. As you can see, the user can load all the country lists, select a country, and all the states or provinces of the country are listed here, and the user can create a new state, update state, and delete state. All the CRUD operations are performed using AJAX calls to the REST API on the server. I have an existing Java Spring Boot project in Spring 2 Suite IDE SDS. As you can see here, the Submit backend project, and this is the main class for the Spring Boot application. And this is a Spring Boot configuration file, application.properties. As you can see, our Spring Boot application is configured to run the embedded Tomcat server listening on port 8080, and the context part is submit admin here. Now, let me run this Spring Boot application so you can see its user interface. So in the Spring 2 Suite IDE, we have the boot dashboard here that allows us to manage running Spring Boot application here. So right click and start. And let's open Chrome browser to access our Spring Boot application. So we head to localhost HTTP localhost port number 8080, and the context part is submit admin. And you see, this is application submit admin control panel that allows the user to manage various information: users, categories, brands, products. And in the settings section, we have the sections that allows the user to manage countries and states here. Currently, these modules, country and state, are not yet implemented, and in this video we will implement these modules using jQuery and AJAX Calls as per the user interface, countries, and states. Let me show you the dependencies we are using in this Spring Boot project. This is a Maven project file pom.xml. As you can see, we use Spring Boot starter security, Spring Boot starter Thymeleaf for Thymeleaf as the view template engine, Spring Boot starter web for web application with embedded web server, Spring Boot starter Data JPA to use Spring Data JPA and Hibernate framework, Spring Boot dev tools to use the automatic reload whenever we make code changes to the project, MySQL connector Java for the JDBC driver for MySQL database, Spring Boot starter test for unit testing with the unit 5 in Spring Boot, Spring Boot security test for testing Spring Boot security, S2 database for in-memory unit testing, and the remaining dependencies for exporting data to CSV, XML, Excel, and PDF. So that's the main dependencies I'm using for this project. And let me show you where I use jQuery and Bootstrap for this Spring Boot project. Fragments. As you can see here, the code that I used to refer to Bootstrap here from this URL, bootstrapcdn.com, Bootstrap version 4.4.1, jQuery version 3.4.1, and Bootstrap JavaScript library, bootstrap.me.js here. So you need to include this code to use Bootstrap and jQuery for the project. Next, let's create the two tables, countries and states, in the database. As you can see, the table countries has two columns, ID and name, and the table states has three columns, ID, name, and country underscore ID, which is the foreign key to the table countries. So the entity relationship between the countries and the states is one-to-many. The country can contain one or more states, and the state belongs to only one country. And this is my SQL workbench in my computer, and this is a subme in database in which is used by our Spring Boot application. As you can see in the application properties file, the subme DB is a database schema used by the application here. Now let's create the two tables, country and state. Let's create the table countries first. Table name, countries, column, ID, data type, integer, primary key, not null, auto increment, and name, mail varchar 124. So it can store long country name, also not null and unique. Click apply. Review the SQL statement and click apply. Done. And we got the countries table created here with the columns ID and name. And next, let's create the states tables. Table name is states. First column is ID. Data type integer, primary key, auto increment, name of state, varchar length is 64, so it can store long state name, unique and not unique. And the third column is a foreign key to the countries table. So country underscore ID, data type integer. That's it. Click apply to create the table first, and click foreign keys here to create a foreign key. Country underscore FK. Reference table is a countries table. Countries column, country underscore ID, and reference column is ID column in the countries table. That's it. Apply. Finish. So we have two tables, country and states, and what created here. States columns, ID, name, and country underscore ID. Now let's create the entity class C to map with the two tables, countries and states, in the database. So come back to the project in Spring Tools with IDE. We need to stop the application first because we are going to make a lot of changes to the code. And I create a new Java package here. Package com.submit.country, and create a new Java class here. The name is country. And we use the entity annotation to mark this entity in JPA. And we use a table annotation to map with the table name in the database. Database is countries. And we have two fields in this entity class. Integer ID is a field for the primary key column, and name of the country. These two fields has the same name as the column names in the database. This is mapped to the primary column, so we need to use the ID annotation and generated value annotation with the strategy is identity to tell Hibernate that the values of this field will be automatically generated by the database. And generate getter and setter methods for this class. Source generate getter and setters for all the fields ID and name here. That's it. And also we need to generate constructors. Source generate constructors using fields only name as the parameter in the constructor here. And also we need to generate no argument constructor. That's it. And because the entity relationship between the tables, countries, and states is one-to-many, so in the country entity class, we need to have a collection of states here. But we need to create a state entity class, new class state. So we can copy this and modify the table name. States. It also has same ID and name. So copy and also copy the headers and set the method. Also copy the constructor. Change the constructor name here. State. That's it. And in the country entity class, we need to have a reference to a correction of state private set state, and because a country can contain one or more states, so we need to use annotation one too many here, and mapped by the country field in the state entity class. And in the state entity class, we need to declare a reference to a country here, private country. And because one or more states belong to a country, so we need to use many to one annotation here with the Zoid column. Is column name is country underscore ID here. That's it for the entity class C to map with the two tables, countries and states in the database. To help you understand the code we are going to write and understand how the application works, I draw this diagram. So in the data access layer, we need to code the entity class. As you've seen, I coded the country entity class, and we need also to declare the repository interface, country repository, to use Spring Data JPA. And Spring Data JPA, we work with Hibernate framework, which in turn we work with JDBC driver, which in turn we work with a database. And in the controller layer, we need to code REST controller to expose the REST APIs to the clients via RESTful Webservices. And in the client in HTML page, we use jQuery to make AJAX calls to the RESTful Webservices to consume the REST APIs exposed by the server via REST controller here. And in the request, we send data in form of JSON format. And in the response, we also read the data as JSON format, and then we use jQuery to update the DOM tree of the HTML document. DOM stands for Document Object Model. So I think this diagram will help you better understand the application, the code we are going to write. Next, we need to code the country repository to use Spring Data JPA to access the database for the CRUD operations. So create a new interface here. The name of the interface is country repository, and its super interface is CRUD repository from Spring Data JPA. And we update the entity type here to country, and the type of the ID is integer. That's it for the country repository. And now let's write some unit tests to make sure that we have created the entity class correctly. So I create a new test class under the test directory here. Create a new Java package. Country. And create a new test class. The name of the test class is country repository test. And we use Data JPA test. So I annotate this test class with Data JPA test. And in this test class, we need to have a reference to the country repository. Country repository report. And we need to auto wire this. Okay. And the first test method is to test create a new country. Spring Boot, we use JUnit 5 as the testing framework. Public test create new country. Note that Spring Data JPA test we replace the default data source declared in the application properties by in-memory database. So for in-memory database test, I want to create and drop the database. So I need to use this properties file test.properties. So in the test class, we need to use another annotation test property source and location. We point to the property in the class path test.properties to separate the configuration with the main application property with the Hibernate DDL auto equal none. And in the test property, it is configured to create and drop the database. That's it. And we create a new proceed a new country object to the database here. Repo save new country. Country name is Vietnam. And this will return a country object saved country. And we assert that assert not know that the saved country object is not know, and the ID of this saved country object is greater than 0. So we use a assertion method assert true saved country and ID greater than 0. That's it for a very simple unit test method. And now let's run this test create new country method. So the outline view. So we can right click here and run as the unit test. You see the test has been passed successfully with a green bar indicator here. That means we have configured the coded the test the entity class correctly. So you can see the SQL statement insert into country name ID here. That's it, and the various SQL statements to create the tables and drop the table. And you can see Spring we use the in-memory database here, embedded database S2 here, and we need to code the second test method that test a list all the countries. Test public void test list, and in this test we need to use the test entity manager. Also, why Spring Data JPA test provides a test entity manager. Test entity manager. Entity manager. This is a wrapped instance of the JPA entity manager, so we can use this to perform database operations that doesn't relate uh, to the object being tested. So in this test list method, I proceed some countries. Proceed new countries. Vietnam. 3 countries. United States and Japan. And I test the repository by invoke the find all method here, and this return a list of country. Sorry, list from the Java ut package. List country, list countries. We need to have a cast here, and we assert that we can use AssertJ library for more fluent assertion API. So we can assert that from the AssertJ. List countries is not empty, and we'll also use a for loop to iterate through each country element in the list. For each country in the list of countries, we print out the country name, country get name. That's it, and run this test method, test list. The test has been passed, and you can see in the console it prints 3 countries: Vietnam, United States, and Japan. So that's for the unit test for the country repository. Next, we need to code a REST controller class to expose REST APIs for the clients, and we are going to code the country REST controller. So create a new controller class here. New class. The name of the class is country REST controller. And in this controller class, we use Spring RESTful Webservices APIs to expose CRUD APIs to the client via RESTful Web Services. So we use the REST controller annotation here. And in this controller, we need to have an instance of country or repository. Country repository repo, and this must be auto-wire. And the first API method we need to expose to the client is a list all method that allows the client to get the list of all countries in the database. So we use the annotation get mapping, which the URL is /country /list, and the method name. This method return a list of country object, country list all, and we simply return the result of the repository file or method here. And Spring Boot, we automatically convert the result of the list of country objects to JSON. Okay, that's it. The first method for the country REST controller. Next, we come to code the user interface for the module countries. That looks like this, with the button allows the user to load to refresh the whole list of countries, and select list to display all the countries, and text field that allows the user to enter the country name to be created or updated. And before that, we have the label country name and the buttons for the CRUD operation to create a new country, update country, and delete country. So in the project, we have template HTML files here. I used fragments in Thymeleaf, and this is a fragment for the country module here. Okay, now we can start our application. So we can test the user interface. Yeah, the tab countries here, and we are going to code the user interface that looks like this. Okay, settings, countries, and this is the settings, and I want to make the active tab is the countries tab, not the general tab. So active here. Settings. Okay, no problem. It always choose the first tab. Okay, now let's code the user interface using HTML and Bootstrap. First, we need to have a button to allow the user to load the country list. Input type equal button. Value is a caption of the button. Load country list is a caption of the button. The first time the user see. And the ID of this button is button load countries, and we use Bootstrap class btn for the button. Btn dash primary. Refresh countries, and you see the button load country list appears here in a green here. Thanks to Bootstrap, so you can create nice responsive user interface quickly. And then we need to have a div section for the drop down list, the list of country. So we use a HTML select element, and the ID of this select is drop down country. and class is form dash control in Bootstrap, and we display some option for testing. Country 1, country 2, country 3. Refresh countries, and you see country 1, country 2, country 3. And the next section is for the label, text field, and the buttons at the bottom here. We use a Bootstrap class form dash group dash form dash group and row to display the section as a group of form elements, and we have the label for name, for country name, and class is code dash form dash label, and ID is label country name. The tag is country name. That's it. Now let's refresh, and you can see the label country name here. And then is a text field. We use the separate div section for the text field. Input type equal text. Class is form dash control. And ID is field country name. And the value of this text field is required. And you see the text field appear here. And then we have the last section for the buttons, 3 buttons. Input type equal button. Value is add, the add button. ID is button add, and class is btn secondary. That's it for the button add. As you can see here, button add and button update and button delete. Button update ID is button update, and the last button is button delete. Value is delete the caption of the button. That's it. And you see we have 3 buttons here, add, update, and delete. And next we use some CSS class from Bootstrap to make the form looks better, like this, with margin spacing. So here for the first button we use a margin 2, and for the drop down country form control we use margin M2, and for the form, for the label we use the class con dash sm2, and also we use a margin top 2 here. And for the input text field we also use the margin top 2. Refresh, You see, it looks a little bit better. And we'll also need to add a style for the section of the buttons here. Class. This is a column small margin 4 empty has 2. You see, it looks better, right? And we need to add some extra margin to the right of the button here. M-R-2, M-R-2. You see, it looks better, right? And for the list of the countries, we need to have it expanded that looks like this, so the user can see more countries. So with the select element here, we need to specify the style. Height is about 300 pixels, and the size of the element is 3. And the state of the button update and delete initially are disable. That's it. Disable. That's it. And you can see we have the user interface for the countries module. Pretty nice, right? Next, we need to write JavaScript code using jQuery to make AJAX call to invoke the RESTful Web Service API list or in the REST controller to display the list of countries in the HTML page. So I create a new JavaScript file under the static directory here. Create a new folder first for JavaScript JS and create a new JavaScript file. JavaScript source file, and the file name is countries.js. Finish. And we refer to the countries.js file in the HTML here. It's settings here below the script section here. So we use the script with the Thymeleaf syntax th src equal. We need to use this Thymeleaf syntax, so it will generate the URL correctly, and the directory is /js and /countries.js. And in the JavaScript file, we declare some variables. The first variable for the button load, and in the document ready function, when the page load, we need to initialize some objects function. Button load equal the query select syntax to select an element from the HTML document. Button load countries is the ID of the button in the HTML. Here you can see button load countries here, and we add the event listener click event for the button load click function. And for testing, we just alert loading countries. That's it. And now let's refresh the web page to see if the button is working or not. Countries, load country list, and you can see pop-up dialog say loading countries. That means our JavaScript code is successfully invoked. And now let's write JavaScript code to make AJAX call to the REST API on the server to load the countries. We have the API list all in the country REST controller here. And when the button load is clicked, we call the function load countries and write this function here. And this is a jQuery, a GET method that allows programmers to make a AJAX call for the HTTP GET method. It takes some parameters URL, and this is a callback function that is executed when the process when receiving response from server, and we usually update the HTML DOM-G here. And we also can implement the callback function fail, done, and always here. For reference, you can look at this URL for more about the jQuery GET method. So the first thing is a URL to the API on the server. It should be something like here. That's it. And we use the get method dot get URL, and the function is invoked when the call has been executed successfully and the server return a response JSON. And we just alert the response JSON for initial testing purpose. And the callback function done. Function. This function we execute when the method code has been done. Alert done. And we also alert in case of error. So we implement the callback function fail here. Alert failed for testing purpose. Okay, and on the server side in the REST controller list or method here, we just print out something to make sure that this method is actually invoked. List or REST APIs is invoked. That's it. Wait for the server for Spring Boot to update the changes, and now we can test settings, countries, load country list, and we have what the message failed. Okay, and look at the console view. We can see that the method on the server side has not been invoked, so something wrong. I think it is due to the URL is not correct here. So it's better to use Thymeleaf to have the correct context path. So in the setting here, we declare a variable context path here, và context path. It should be equal to an expression of Thymeleaf here. So we just need to have the context path for the application here. That's it. And in the JavaScript, we concatenate context path plus country /list, and let's refresh, view the page source to see view page source, and you can see Thymeleaf automatically generates the context path for and assign to the variable context path here, so that we can use to call the API and click the load country list. And you see it's empty because I think the server has been invoked, and the API call was success. And you can see in the console view for Spring Boot application, list or REST API is invoked, but in the database, the data in the countries table is now empty, so we don't see anything in the response. Let's insert manually insert a new row to the country table. Okay, countries here. You see, it is empty. Now I insert the first country is United States. Click apply, finish. And now let's refresh. Click the button lost country list again, and you can see it returns an array of objects. So you can't see the real content, but we sure that it returns the list of country from the database. Okay, so far so good. And now we update this code to update the HTML document to display the list of countries. And the first we need to clear the we need to have a variable to refer to the drop-down country equal here, and the ID of the drop-down country here, drop-down countries. And here first we should empty the list first, and then we add the elements so when each time the user click the load country list button, the list is filled with all the country from the database, and it is not duplicate. And we use a for each statement in jQuery, for each in JSON. We execute this function, and in this function we just have the parameter index and the country object. And we can alert the name of the country here. Settings, countries. You can see it says United States, which is exactly one country in the database. So we don't need to alert in done or fail method anymore. Let's insert the second country in the database, Vietnam. Apply, finish, and click the load country list again. United States and Vietnam, you see. Perfect, right? And now let's update the code to add the option to the list. So we don't have these options anymore, just empty. And now we create an option element with value is ID of the country, country.id, and text is the name of the country, country.name, and append to the drop-down list here, drop-down country, ID and name of the country is a property name in the entity class, ID and name here. That's it. And now let's refresh countries, load country list, and you see it adds United States and Vietnam to the list. Perfect, right? And next, we implement the save method in the country REST controller class to expose the API that allows the client to create new or update country. So go to the country REST controller and we implement another method here. And this time, this method will handle HTTP post method. So we use an annotation post mapping, and the URL is /countries/save, and the method is signature public string. This method return a string for the ID of the newly created country or updated country. And for this REST API method, we use a request body annotation to capture the data sent from the client in JSON format, convert to a Java object country. And for testing purpose, we print the name of the country, get name, and we call the save method from the country repository. Save here, country. This method return the newly persisted object country, saved country equal, and then we return the ID of the saved country in the form of string. Return string value of saved country get ID. That's it for the API that expose the function to allow the client to save the country, create new or update country. And now let's write Java code to call that API in using jQuery, send data to the request in form of JSON to the server, and then the save method will be invoked and it will respond with to the client. And when we update the DOM key to display to add the newly created country to the list here. So in the JavaScript here, we need to have a reference to the text field country name here, field country name, và field country name, and the button add field country name equal field country name and button add the ID of the add button here. You see button add here, and we add the click event for the button add button click function, and we invoke the method add country, and we implement the method add country here, function add country. And to make a AJAX call to a REST API that handles HTTP post method, we can use the dot post method from jQuery. with this syntax URL parameters callback function. But for a Spring Boot project, it's better to use the AJAX method with type post and to pass Spring security. We need to set the request header for the CSRF header name and CSRF token, and to send form data as JSON format to the server, we should use the method JSON.stringify to convert JSON objects to string format. And we also need to set the content type is application/JSON to send data as JSON format. So the first thing is URL equal context path plus countries/save, and then we need to read the name of the country from the text field. Here we have the variable field country name already here, field country name, and we assign the value to the variable country name, field country name dot var. Var is for value, and we construct the JSON data equal an object with the attribute name, and data is country name. That's it. And then we call the AJAX method here with some options here. The first option is a HTTP method type is post, and the URL is a URL. And we need to set the HTTP request header for CSRF token to pass Spring security. In the callback function before send here, function XSR for the XML HTTP request object. XSR dot set request header CSRF header and CSRF token. And in a Spring Boot project with Thymeleaf, we can read the values of the CSRF header and CSRF token. So we declare a variable in JavaScript to store the value of CSRF header here equal to let's see, we use Thymeleaf syntax CSRF object header name, and the CSRF token value is CSRF dot token here. That's it. And let's refresh to see the generated value of CSRF in the source code. And you can see the CSRF header here and the value here to bypass the Spring security check for CSRF to prevent CSRF attack. Okay, and then we specify the JSON data to be sent to the server. Data is JSON. We use a method stringify to convert the object JSON data here to a string representation. JSON data, and the content type is application/json. That's it. And the callback function done here will be executed when the call has been executed successfully. And because in the REST API in the server it returns a string for the ID of the country. So here in the callback function done here, we define the country ID here. That's it, and we alert ID saved country ID plus country ID for testing purpose first. And if it fails, we also execute this function, and we alert the message alert failed. Okay, that's it. Now we can test. Refresh countries and lost country list, and you can see currently we have 2 countries, United States and Vietnam, and let's add a new country is Japan. Click add, and you can see the server returns country ID 3. That means a new country has been inserted successfully into the database. Refresh this table, and you can see the country Japan with ID 3 appears here. Very good, right? And let's see in the console view, you can see Japan is printed from the save method here. Perfect, right? And let's add another country, China. And you can see the server returns country ID 4, which is the ID of the new row in the database for China here. You see. And after the country has been added to the database, we should display the newly added country onto the list here. So we need to update the JavaScript code here in the callback function done here, and we select newly added country with a given country ID and country name, and we create this method, code this method function, select newly added country with parameter country ID and country name, and we create a new option element, HTML option element to be added to the drop-down list. Value country ID, text country name, country ID, append to the drop-down list country. Let's test it. Settings, country, load, and now we have 4 countries. Let's add a new country name. Is Mexico. And you see, newly added country Mexico here, and we should select the newly added country. So we write another JavaScript statement using jQuery select, and then the ID of the drop-down list countries, drop-down countries here. And then we select the option element with the value is a country ID value equal country ID, and then we set the property selected to true. And after that, we refocus to the field country name to allow the user to add another country field country name. We empty the text field and then focus. That's it. Now refresh settings, countries, load country list, and you see we have uh, five countries. And now let's add another country. Is South Korea. And you see this time the newly country is selected South Korea here, and it clears the text field and focus to allow the user to add another country. Now let me add three other countries. United Kingdom, add, you see, and France, add, and Germany, add. Perfect, right? And let's check the database. And you see new countries rows were inserted: France, Germany, South Korea, United Kingdom here. As you can see, the countries in the list are not sorted in any order. We want to sort this in the alphabetic order, so we need to update the code a little bit. So in the repository, country repository here, we declare a method that tells string data JPA to sort the list. So this method public list country, and this method by convention is file by order by and name in ascending order. That's it. And very simple. And Spring Data JPA, we automatically generate the corresponding SQL statement. And then in the REST controller, we invoke that method here, so we don't have to cast here. Okay. Save the changes and test to see if the list of country is sorted or not. Okay, settings, countries, load country list, and you can see the list of countries is now sorted. You can see China, France, Germany, Japan, Mexico, South Korea, Vietnam. But note that when adding, it is not sorted. The user must click the load country list button to refresh. Now let me add another country is Brazil. Add, you see, and another country is Egypt. Add, and Malaysia. Add, and we need to click the load country list button to refresh, and you can see it is now sorted. Perfect, right? And when the first time the user sees the countries, it is the caption of the button is load country list, and after that we need to change the caption to refresh country list. So we update the script code here in the callback function done when loading country here. Button load value is refresh country list. That's it. Try again. Country, load country, and you can see the caption change to refresh country list. Next, we are going to implement the update country function that allows the user to select a country here, and the country name will be displayed in the text field. The user can edit and click the update button, and it will update the country name in the database. So first, we need to obtain the reference to the button update and label và label country name and var button update. We get the button update reference here and label country name here, label country name. ID of the label country is here, label country name. That's it. And we add the event listener when the user select an item from the list here. For the drop-down list country here, drop-down list country on chain event, we execute this callback function. And we change the form state to selected country, and we write this method right below. Here we get a selected country name. Selected country name is a selected option element from the drop-down country list. Drop-down countries. Here we select the option selected, and the text. You see the country name, and we set the country name onto the text field here. Text field country name, field country name. Value is selected country name, and we'll also change the label to selected country here. So label country name. Text is selected country, and when a country is selected here, the button add is disabled and the button update and delete are enabled. So we set the property for the button add prop. The value for the button add, the value for the button add is new, and the button update is enabled. So we disable the property disabled to false. So for the button delete, so the user can update or delete the selected country, and that's it. And the button add becomes new. Okay, that's it. Let's test settings, country, load country list. Select Germany, and you can see selected country Germany here. But the button update and delete, button update. We need to get the button update here, button update, and button delete, delete, button delete here. Okay, refresh. Load country list. Egypt. You can see the buttons update and delete are now enabled, so the user can click update or delete to update or delete the selected country. And now we can write code for the click event of the update button here. It would be similar to the add button. So we add event Click event handler for the button update here. Update. The method is update country, and the code is similar to the add country method, so we can copy paste and then modify the add country method here. We use the same URL, the same method, the same handler method in the REST controller class. This can be used to create a new country or update an existing country. So this method is update country. Update country. Need to add the ID of the selected country and the country name as well. Country ID is selected value of the drop-down country list. Drop-down country here. Drop-down country value, and then the country name from the few country name here. And we construct JSON data including the ID of the country, ID property, and country ID here. Type of the request is post URL before send JSON data. So this is similar. The only difference is in the JSON data sent to the server. And in the same method, we also bring the ID of the selected country get ID. And this is ID. Alert. Done. Yeah. Okay. Now test settings. Countries. Load country list. Select South Korea, and I want to update the country name to North Korea. Click update, and you can see it says that. That means the update country function has been executed successfully, and on the server you can see it prints ID6 name North Korea here. ID6 North Korea. Before that in the database it is South Korea, and now let's refresh. You can see ID6 updated to North Korea here. Perfect, right? And then we also need to update the item in the list as well. So to update the item in the list, so we add JavaScript code here. We select the drop-down country list ID here. Here, and we select the selected element, selected, and we change the text to the variable country name. Let's test it. Settings, country, load country list. I want to change North Korea. Now I change back to South Korea, and now this time it should update in the list as well. Update. You see, the list item also updated it to South Korea here. Let's check in the database. Before that it is North Korea, as you can see here. Now refresh, and you can see it is updated to South Korea. Perfect. And then we also need to after a country has been updated, we need to clear the form state to allow the user to create a new country. So we update the code here, change from state to new country, and we write this method right below function. And in this method, we change the caption of the button add to add, and we set the label to country name. Label country name. Text is country name. And we disable the button update and button delete, so we can copy the code here. We set the property disable to true for the button update and delete, and then we focus the text field country name, and that's it. And test settings countries, not country list. Now let's update country Malaysia to Kingdom of Malaysia. Click update, and you can see the country name updated in the list. Label updates to country name. Text field is clear and focused, and the button update and delete disabled, and the caption of the button add is now add. Perfect, right? Next, I will show you how to implement the delete country operation that allows the user to delete a selected country from the list. Here, the user can select a country and click delete button here, and we will make a AJAX call to the RESTful Web Service API on the server. So we need to update the country REST controller here to have the API that allows the client to delete the country. And this time we use REST mapping. The URL is /country and /delete, and then the ID of the country to be deleted. This method doesn't return any value. Delete, and we bind the path element ID here to a variable or as a parameter in the method path variable, and name is ID, and we bind it to a variable integer ID. And in this method we simply call the method of the repository delete by ID here. Very simple for the server side, and the REST API for the delete operation. And write JavaScript code to handle the event for the button delete. Button delete here. Button delete. Click event. We execute this function, and in this function we call the method delete country. And the method delete country here. Function delete country. And this would be similar to the list countries method, but it is simpler. The first parameter is a URL is equal to the context path plus countries / delete / and then the ID of the selected country. ID of the selected country here is the selected value of the drop-down list, and then we can use the method .get here from jQuery to make an AJAX call to the HTTP GET method for the URL, and in the callback function done here, we when a country deleted, we remove it from the list here and change the form state to allow the user to add a new country. So we select the item in the list and then remove drop down countries. Drop down countries here, option selected, and remove. And then we change the form state to new country here. That's it, very simple. And now let's test settings, countries, load country list, and to delete the country China, click delete. We got error here, error 404. That means country delete ID. Let's see here. We in this method we print out the value of the country ID. This is the URL. Countries delete country delete. Sorry, we need to concatenate the country ID here. That's it. And test again. Countries, load country, delete China, delete. And you see China was removed from the list and the form state changed to create new country. And on the server side, you can see it prints country ID 4. ID 4 in the database is for China here. And now let's select again, and you can see China's was removed. Perfect. Let's delete another country, Kingdom of Malaysia. Delete. You see. So far, you have learned how to implement a module in a Spring Boot project for CRUD AJAX REST API with jQuery and Bootstrap. You have learned how to make the countries module with the CRUD operation, create, retrieve, update, and delete via AJAX Calls to the REST API on the server, which is implemented in Spring Boot RESTful Webservices. And in the second part, I will show you how to implement the module state also with CRUD AJAX REST API call. I hope you found this video helpful. Please subscribe to help grow this channel. Like, comment, and share this video. Thank you.